This is Block 9, the Liberal Establishment, Section 6, the Civil Rights Movement, with Freedom Riders. Kennedy's careful waiting game and playing the politics of the Democratic Party was muddied and kind of almost made relatively irrelevant by a group of Americans, black and white, known as the Freedom Riders. They were Americans who believed in civil rights, both black and white Americans and white Americans from the North, who rode buses through the South attempting to rally blacks to civil rights in general and to register them to vote in particular. That convoys of buses would leave northern cities filled with idealistic volunteers, and they would drive through the segregated South attempting to register blacks to vote. These northern buses, with big signs on the side, and here's one example, from Washington, D.C. down through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, across the heart of the old Deep South, and finishing up down in New Orleans. These buses were kind of obvious targets for, they said Freedom Riders on the side of them. That the people involved made no attempts to hide who they were, and they were very often targeted, by white supremacists who attacked the buses and even occasionally sometimes burned them. White sheriffs down in the South would take the Freedom Riders, and as you can see from this picture here, they would arrest them for disturbing the peace. They would arrest them for inciting violence themselves, which of course was slightly ridiculous. And here are, a group of Freedom Riders, as you can see, both black and white, with their mugshots, for doing nothing but arguing that Americans should all share in their heritage of freedom that was promised, in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and then with the Reconstruction Amendments that they had been denied for so very long. The next part. That's strange. I'll have to do this on my own. What the Freedom Riders were attempting to do was register blacks to vote. That blacks in the South make up at least 30% of the population at a minimum, but they only made up such a tiny, tiny degree of registered voters, less than 5%, and sometimes as low as 1% of blacks were registered to vote in the South, and that these Freedom Riders and the voter education project, you can see, Vote Tuesday, your future depends on it, be somebody, vote. Here's what these Freedom Rider buses going through black neighborhoods and black areas of the South, attempting to register people to vote. They pass out literature, and many blacks do register to vote, but the realities of the white South mean that blacks who register to vote kind of make themselves stand out. There's even a law in Mississippi that any black who dares register to vote has to publish his name in the newspaper and his address 2 weeks before the election, which obviously just invites, extrajudicial threats from people like the Ku Klux Klan. But the voter education project is evidence that black America is now working for its own civil rights more than it ever has before. Equality-minded Americans, both black and white from the North, are volunteering to fix this obvious problem in American society.